Hi everyone. Recently I had a few discussions with my colleagues in the industry and also with a number of new grads. The new grads were asking me why it is so hard to find a job in medical sales, especially in operating room sales. And my colleagues, when I was talking to them in different types of conversations, they were talking about hiring process and they were explaining me, and we were just discussing why they often do not want to hire someone inexperienced for operating room sales representative or account manager or surgical product account manager. And I realized that there's not much information out there that explains what is the job of surgical medical sales rep. And I decided to explain you what it is and to explain you what is to be one and what type of job it is. Before I continue, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button below my video. For you, it's just a simple click. For me, it's a sign that the content that I create is valuable and interesting and helpful to you, so I can keep doing this. Okay, let's begin. In my previous videos, I always talked about more of a general idea of medical sales representative, because there's so many fields and specialties in medicine that require sales representatives in different types of technologies. And there are so many different companies, different devices, equipment, medical technologies that need people with sales skills, and they hire people to deliver those technologies to the end user. And that's the most valuable skill that salespeople bring to the company, because they are that link between the company and the end user, the customer. However, when we're talking about the operating room sales and support, this particular area requires the most comprehensive skill set from salespeople, and it requires a high level of competence. So the skills that you need, it's hard to obtain just at university or in a different industry. It's a combination of different skills. Point number one, which is very basic, as you can imagine, you just simply need to know the rules of the operating room, of the OR. You need to know the dynamics, what is happening, and again, as you can imagine, the basic knowledge of anatomy, physiology, medical terminology is an imperative knowledge that you need to know in order to bring value to the table when you are part of the surgical suite team. On top of that, you need to be comfortable with looking at the surgery. You need to be comfortable with seeing some bleeding, internal organs, sometimes ugly stuff and uncomfortable things. And you need to be fine with that, and you need to understand why and what's happening. Because when you get the training on product, it doesn't mean that you will have that exposure to surgical procedures, and you need to be okay with that. Good news is that it all comes with building up the experience, so you can always just start and build up and get used to it. Another thing is, if you are working in the OR, you are functioning, you schedule your day according to the schedule of the OR. So be prepared for very early mornings. You need to be ready to come to the surgery sometimes even earlier than the staff and the team, because you need to prepare your product, or maybe you need to train people before the surgery starts, or maybe you need to check your equipment that you represent for the case, and you need to know what is happening before the case rather than after. So early mornings is one thing. Second thing is on-call schedule, because again, you are part of the team, and if you need to be in the surgical suite for a specific, maybe emergency case, you need to be ready to be on call sometimes. So maybe 1 or 2 weekends a month and a couple of weeks a month, depending on the specialty, depending on the requirements of the hospital, you need to be on call, which means that you need to be able to get to the hospital after someone calls you within about 15 to 30 minute time window. Things like that you need to know when you are considering getting into surgical sales. Next thing is travel time and coverage of your territory. Usually you cover more than one hospital, so you need to schedule your time, your day, your week, your month based on what is happening. You need to prioritize based on complexity of procedure or maybe the level of your involvement into the support. And that's something that also is being learned over time. That's exactly why companies want to have someone more experienced who already done that and knows how to navigate through all of this process. The next thing is knowing the dynamics and structure or hierarchy inside of the hospital. Because it's not that simple. When you think about surgical sales or sales in the OR, it's not that you are being trained on the product. It's an amazing piece of equipment, technology, medical technology. You're bringing it to the surgical suite, showing to the surgeon, and they say, yes, we like it, bring it tomorrow morning for the next surgery. That's not how it works. There are so many components in the process that you need to know. So many people that are involved in the process of bringing something new to the hospital, where the sales rep is the person to cover it all. So that involves communicating with a number of different people on different levels of management, surgeons, nurses, technicians, etc. And you need to know that. Without that knowledge, it's hard to convince some employer that you are capable of selling, because it's not just selling, it's also knowing how things are. Again, it can be learned, but that you need to know, you need to be ready for when you are aiming to become the surgical sales representative. Another skill that companies are looking for is the ability of the person to be relentless. You need to be persistent, you need to be positive, you need to be self-motivated. It's very important to succeed in this type of role. And you cannot avoid any problems or maybe technical issues in the surgical environment. They happen because of many reasons. And in the moment of the difficulty or challenge, you need to have the strength and the ability and also sense of authority to step up and say, I think this is what's happening and this is why we need to change something, or something need to be maybe adjusted. And you need to do it in the right way, so you do not cross the line between the surgeon, the nurse who are doing the procedure, but you also need to be able to take responsibility, and obviously you need to have the knowledge of what you are doing, what they are doing, in order to try to overcome the challenge. It's important, and that's what companies are looking for. So I can talk about this for a long time, but I want to conclude that the surgical sales rep or the operating room sales representative is a very unique, I would even say niche role or niche sales position, where people who are working in that area, they do obtain different types of skills over time, and they need to be able to learn all the time, and they need to be able to assess the situation constantly, and they need to be able to work within the surgical environment at all times, which is not a simple environment to work in. And that's what makes them, first of all, highly competitive, second of all, highly paid, and third, quite respected employees or human resources, let's call them. And that's if you are aiming to become one, I'd suggest to start somewhere and build up that knowledge and build that skill set. And that's the only way for you to get into it if you really want it. So before you even go, it can sound appealing because all the perks and fun things that you hear, but you need to be able to put the work in as well. And it's not a simple work. Very different dynamics, different hours, different requests from the company and from the end users in terms of support. So you need to be prepared for it in order to succeed in this role and in order to get in. So I wish you all the best in your endeavors. If you are looking for the job in medical sales, you can send me your questions and comments below my video. I will try to reply to them as soon as I can. And good luck with the job search. And I hope I was able to clarify a little bit more what it is to become the operating room sales representative.